Kenneth James Parks, age 24, 6'5" tall, 280 pounds. The night of May 24th, 1987, he was sitting in front of his TV in the living room, had fallen asleep. He woke up, put on his shoes, grabbed a set of car keys, left the house, leaving the front door completely wide open, got in his car, left, leaving the garage door completely open. He drove through the streets of Toronto, 23 kilometers, which is 14 miles, went to the home of his in-laws, Barbara Woods and Donald Woods, and in the garage he took out a tire iron, went upstairs to their bedroom. He nearly strangled his father-in-law, Donald Woods, before he went to his mother-in-law, Barbara Woods. He smashed her with a tire iron. She had brain bleeding, but he stabbed her 6 times with a kitchen knife, and the stab through the heart killed her. He then went to the door, outside the door, the 2 doors of their teenage daughters, and they reported later that he was grunting in a very loud way like an animal. And it was terrifying because then he stopped grunting and then he started again. Fortunately, he did not enter their room. He left the home, walked into a police station at 4:45 in the morning, and he said, "I think I killed somebody. I don't know what happened. I saw the face of Barbara Woods. It looked very sad to me, but I don't know what happened. I think I did something terrible." The police made a very important observation. He had cut the tendons of all his fingers, the flexor tendons. In the process of stabbing his mother-in-law and his father-in-law, the kitchen knife must have slipped through his fingers, and he cut the flexor tendons. He showed no pain. He felt no pain. And in the subsequent trial, that was very important evidence to indicate that he was not really with it, not awake. Because people, if they're awake, will have incredible pain after cutting basically 10 tendons of your hands. Now, he was acquitted in the trial that began a year later, and this made Canadian legal history the first time the sleepwalking defense was successfully used in a murder case. Now, people will say, how could this be? Well, the evidence was really compelling. I reviewed the 1,737-page court transcript, which I analyzed in my book, Paradox Lost. And basically, I think the jury got it right. First of all, he had a sleepwalking history. At the age of 11, his mother caught him as he was about to leave the 6th-floor window of their dwelling. I mean, he would have killed himself. He was always known to be a very, very deep sleeper. He also had an incredible family history of sleepwalking. 20 first-degree and second-degree family relatives had parasomnias. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And covering 4 different parasomnias: sleepwalking, sleep terrors, sleep talking, and also sleep-related eating disorders. So he had the incredible family history, he had the personal history, and on top of that, he had 3 major precipitating factors for people with a vulnerability to sleepwalking. The first factor was that he had been sleep-deprived 48 hours, which is a known risk factor for sleepwalkers. Second of all, he had major physical stress. He had played rugby on a very hot and humid afternoon in Toronto, and he was incredibly out of shape. So that's what we call a physical stress. And third, he had emotional stress. He had been a gambler, had gotten into major debt, and that was really weighing on him and really having an adverse effect on their marriage. Also, in the kind of witch's brew of his sleepwalking mind, the next day, he had organized a picnic, a barbecue at his in-laws' house. So in the sleepwalking mind, he was driving to his in-laws. He just happened to do it maybe 12 hours too soon in the wrong state of mind, in other words, the sleepwalking mind. How the violence and the murder entered in, we don't know, but basically he had no motivation to kill his in-laws, and in fact, when he first met his future wife, Karen, she was a teenage runaway, and he convinced her to go back to her parents. So his in-laws were immensely appreciative of him because he helped rescue their runaway daughter, told her, go back to your parents. He eventually married them, and they considered him like a son. In fact, Barbara Woods called him my gentle giant. And in fact, he murdered her. So there was really no reason at all for motive for murder. He had been a sleepwalker, he had the risk factors for that night, and he had the family history. And for that reason, the jury, I think, got it right by acquitting him. The prosecution in Canada can appeal a murder trial, unlike the United States. And on appeal, the acquittal was sustained. It was basically supported. And unfortunately, I heard that down the road, he eventually did get divorced. I think it was just too much of a strain on your marriage when your wife realizes, you killed my mother, you almost killed my father. Although apparently he did well with clonazepam as therapy of his sleepwalking. But I think this is an extreme example of sleepwalking, but it's unintentional behavior with tragic consequences. And obviously sleepwalkers should avoid the precipitating factors in terms of sleep deprivation, physical stress, and deal with their emotional stress the best way possible.